Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has abruptly resigned as Member of Parliament in a furious protest against lawmakers investigating his behaviour, reopening deep divisions in the ruling Conservative Party ahead of a general election expected next year. Johnson, who had been under investigation by a parliamentary inquiry looking into whether he misled the House of Commons about lockdown-breaking parties in Downing Street during the COVID-19 pandemic, has accused lawmakers investigating him of being determined to end his political career. Good morning, I'm Sarah Sapsanama. Let's begin with the headlines of the hour. Government prepares to upgrade federal hospitals into teaching hospitals. MD, MS, among other degrees to be provided. Doctors having to go abroad for specialized studies expected to reduce. Complaints against cooperatives pile up. Over 12,000 complaints at Department of Cooperatives and the police. Police express difficulty in carrying out investigations due to overload of complaints. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson steps down immediately as a Tory MP after receiving an advance copy of the Partygate report. The report looks into whether he misled Parliament over lockdown-breaking parties. And Novak Djokovic reaches the French Open final, defeating ailing Carlos Alcaraz, eyes for a record 23rd men's Grand Slam title. To clash against Casper Ruud. The government is making preparations to upgrade federal hospitals in the form of teaching hospitals. Preparations are being made to provide education on MD, MS, among other degrees, so that the general public can receive health services from specialist doctors. This has been prioritized in the budget for the upcoming fiscal year as well. The federal government will be upgrading 7 central hospitals into teaching hospitals within the next fiscal year. Among those hospitals is Bhaktapur Hospital, which was established 67 years ago and expands on 12 bighas of land. The hospital has 165 doctors and 325 nurses serving patients at the moment. The government is raising the capacity of Bhaktapur Hospital and upgrading it into a teaching hospital by putting it under the National Academy for Medical Sciences to facilitate specialized health services to the general public. Likewise, Bhaktapur Hospital, Koshi, Rajbiraj, Narayani, Pokhara, Dadilthura and Nepalganj federal hospitals will also be upgraded into teaching hospitals. The Ministry of Health expects to provide continuous specialized health services to patients through these teaching hospitals and end complaints of lack of specialized doctors. Doctors are still compelled to go abroad to attain specialized degrees. However, with the development of these teaching hospitals, doctors can receive their MD, MS, among other degrees within the country. Complaints against cooperatives have piled up at the Department of Cooperatives and with the police after depositors were denied of their money and operators of the cooperatives remained out of contact. The Central Investigation Bureau has informed that over 12,000 complaints have been filed against cooperatives at the 3 tiers of the government entities and the Department of Cooperatives. Out of those complaints, around 200 depositors have filed complaints directly with the CIB against a dozen cooperatives, among which majority are of Kathmandu, Lalitpur and Bhaktapur. Complaints have been filed against Bhaktapur's Shiva Shikhar cooperative, demanding to pay out 14 billion rupees. Likewise, complaints have been filed against Lalitpur's Pashupati cooperative, demanding 1.14 billion rupees and Kathmandu's Ever Trust cooperative, demanding 341.414 million rupees. With the rising number of complaints against cooperatives, their operators have started to disappear and the police say their passports have been suspended. CIB Director Kiran Bhattacharya says that it has been difficult in carrying out investigations due to overload of complaints. Although the government has assured the depositors that their deposits would be returned, the victims have resorted to street protests demanding for the return of their hard-earned money. The victims who have been staging protests at Maitikar Mandala have demanded for actions against the cooperatives operators. There are around 32,000 cooperatives in the country, in which there are more than 7.575 million share members. Now, in our Public Voice segment, we'd asked people in several provinces what should be done to save water sources that have been drying up due to impacts of climate change and rise in population. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
पानीको मुहानहरुमा जुन डोजरहरु चलाउँदै आएको छ अहिले राज्यले त्यस्तो कामहरु रोक्नु पर्दछ
खाली जमिनहरुमा यो संरचनाहरु सिमेन्टेड गर्ने काम नगर्ने
बाटोघाटो निर्माण गर्दाखेरि कोअर्डिनेसन हुन पर्यो
फोहोर मैला ती प्लास्टिक जन्य वस्तुहरु
तिनलाई कन्ट्रोल गर्ने व्यवस्थित गर्ने
पुराना पोखरी कुवा पानीहरू कुवा धाराहरूलाई संरक्षण गर्ने
घर घरमा ठुलो बोरिङहरू गाड्दै गएका छन् त्यसो हुँदाखेरि तल पानीको स्रोतहरू घटेर पानीको समस्या भइरहेको छ
प्लानिङ भइरहेछ नि बस्तीहरू बसिरहेछ यसलाई चाहिँ रोक्नु पर्ने
मूलहरूलाई संरक्षण गर्नुपर्छ
पर्यावरणको सुरक्षा हुनु
दाउरा काट राखेको पनि काटेको ठाउँमा पुनः वृक्षारोपण गर्नुपर्छ भनी जनचेतना जगाउनु पर्छ
बोट बिरुवा वनस्पतिहरू छन् तिनको संरक्षण गर्नु पर्यो
सिमसार क्षेत्रहरूलाई संरक्षण गर्न केही अभियानहरू सञ्चालन गर्ने
पानीको मुहान वरिपरि भएको चाहिँ रुख बिरुवाहरूलाई कटानी गर्नु भएन
सुक्दै गएको नदी नालालाई उचित व्यवस्था गर्नुपर्छ
वृक्षारोपणका अभियानहरू सञ्चालन गर्नु पर्यो
पर्यावरणलाई हामीले जोगाउने कार्यक्रमहरू ल्याउनु पर्छ
वृक्षारोपणमा विशेष जोड दिन पर्छ
वन जंगलमा आगलागी भइरहेको छ हैन आगलागीलाई नियन्त्रण गर्नु पर्यो
वन जंगल मास्नु भएन
वृक्षारोपणहरू चाहिँ गर्नु पर्यो
अवैध उत्खनन बन्द गर्नु पर्यो
जलवायु परिवर्तन हुने कुनै पनि कार्य गर्नु भएन
Temperature has gone up at Namche Bazar, the gateway to Mount Everest. Local residents say that temperature there has been extreme due to continuous sunshine for the past 1 week. Locals of Namche Bazar, who are used to the cold weather there, have not been able to come out of their houses as the daily temperature has reached up to 12 degrees Celsius. Local business person Lamakaji Sherpa says that scorching sun has been pounding the area from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The average temperature in Namche Bazar during this season is around 5 degrees Celsius. The temperature in the area has reached up to 12 degrees for the first time in 12 years. As a result, agriculture has been affected in Namche Bazar, which is at an altitude of 3,400 meters above sea level. Although it is the season to rear potatoes, farmers have not been able to go to their fields due to the heat. The Meteorological Forecasting Division has informed that the region will witness just light rainfall in the coming days, which won't make a significant impact in lowering the temperature. The government is all poised to introduce work modality to validate marijuana farming for medicinal purpose. The government has even allocated budget in the new fiscal year for the study of marijuana. Lawmakers and right activists have demanded that the ban imposed on marijuana farming should be lifted and pave way for its export. The United Nations Convention in March 1961 endorsed the Single Convention on Narcotic Drug that led to the banning of marijuana as contraband drug. After signing the protocol in 1976, Nepal also adopted rules on contraband drugs. The regulation has been amended on 5 occasions as it considers marijuana farming, its storage, consumption and sale as illegal, liable for punishment. Since its farming is illegal, security officials reached district to destroy marijuana farming. Meanwhile, UN towards the end of the year 2020 lifted the harmful tag from marijuana, considering that it possessed qualities to treat different ailments. This led to the new debate of lifting the ban on marijuana in Nepal as well. The voice has been raised from various quarters, including the parliament. Despite the existing ban, marijuana farming is carried out in a number of places, while the climate in Makwanpur, Bara, Parsa and hilly districts in western Nepal are considered fertile for its farming. Politicians in Makwanpur had even sloganeered to lift the ban on its farming in the recent election as a way to woo the voters. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion. The question is, what's your take on giving validity to marijuana farming? Your options are A, threat to misuse, B, essential for medicine, and C, a way of income generation. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Let's move on to the international update. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is stepping down immediately as a Tory MP after receiving an advance copy of the Partygate report. The report by the MP-led Privileges Committee looked into whether he misled the Parliament over lockdown-breaking parties at Downing Street. The ex-Prime Minister has accused of the inquiry of trying to drive him out. The Privileges Committee said Johnson had impugned the integrity of the House of Commons. The committee said it had followed the procedures and the mandate of the House at all times and would meet on Monday to publish its report promptly. In the former Prime Minister's fiery resignation statement, he said the process was the very definition of a kangaroo court. Johnson received a copy on Thursday and claimed it was riddled with inaccuracies and reeks of prejudice. He did admit misleading Parliament when he gave evidence to the Privileges Committee in a combative hearing in March, but denied doing it on purpose. He said social distancing had not been perfect at gatherings in Downing Street during COVID lockdowns, but insisted the guidelines, as he understood them, were followed at all times. Saudi Arabia and the United States have announced that Sudan's rival factions had agreed on a 24-hour ceasefire. The representatives of the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces agreed to a 24-hour countrywide ceasefire beginning today at 6 Khartoum time, according to a joint Saudi-US statement published by the Saudi press agency. The parties agreed that during the ceasefire, they would refrain from prohibited movements, attacks, use of aircraft or drones, aerial bombardment, artillery strikes, reinforcement of positions, and resupply of forces. They also agreed to allow the unimpeded movement and delivery of humanitarian assistance throughout the country. However, the Sudanese army has highlighted its right reserved to deal with any violations that the rebels may commit during the new truce mediated by Saudi Arabia and the US. The deadly unrest broke out on April 15th in Sudan's capital and adjoining cities. The crisis stems from a disagreement over the integration of the paramilitary RSF into Sudan's army as part of a transition towards civilian rule. Pakistan has presented its federal budget for the next fiscal year, one of 3 measures the International Monetary Fund will gauge before releasing at least some of the $2.5 billion still pending under a lending program expiring later this month. The cash-strapped country, with reserves to barely meet a month's worth of imports, is undertaking steps to secure a $1.1 billion loan, part of a $6.5 billion IMF bailout package, which has been delayed since November, with more than 100 days gone since the last staff-level mission to Pakistan, the longest such delay since at least 2008. Finance Minister Ishaq Dar announced the target during his budget speech to the National Legislature. The budget needs to satisfy the IMF to secure the release of stuck bailout money for the crisis-struck country, which is due to hold a general election by November. Dar said the government had prepared a responsible budget, not an election budget. Some criticized, saying it's a gimmick for the upcoming elections. The total spending target would be 14.46 trillion rupees, some $50.45 billion, with 1.8 trillion rupees going to defense. It would target debt servicing of 7.3 trillion rupees. Turkish security forces seized $1 billion of counterfeit money in Istanbul and arrested 6 people involved in the operation, including 1 Ghanaian and 3 Swedish nationals. Gendarmerie forces tracked these suspects to a storage space in Istanbul's Kagithanes district, where they seized the fake $100 bills meant to be sent to African countries. The suspects' homes were searched and their cash and jewelry confiscated. The Swedish and Ghanaian consulates were notified. The counterfeit haul was the largest in Turkey's history. The ongoing Martyrs Memorial A Division League is concluding today. One of the at-risk teams, APF, and former champions 3-Star might be relegated to the B Division League as the matches take place. 3-Star is playing against Jalakil Youth Club, in which the club must chalk out a victory to avoid relegation. 3-Star have 29 points from 25 matches, while APF is placed at the 10th position with 30 points. APF went at risk after losing against Friends, while the latter saved itself with the win. Jalakil are in the 4th position with 37 points. Regardless of today's result, Jalakil are set to end this season in the 4th position. The match will kick off at Dashrath Stadium at 5:30 this evening. Meanwhile, it's the last domestic match for 3-Star captain Bikram Lama. In the first leg match, 3-Star had defeated Jalakil 1-0. At 2 p.m, Sankata will play against NRT in Chassel Ground. A win today will make sure NRT ends the season in 5th position, as they are currently placed 7th with 33 points. Sankata are in the 9th position with 31 points. In another match in Enfa Complex, scheduled for 2 p.m. kickoff, Machindra Football Club are up against Manang Marshangdi, that are the runners-up of the season. Champions Church Boys will be handed their trophy today. The club won the domestic top flight the same year they debuted at the A Division League, having collected 48 points from 26 matches. Kumaltar Youth Club, meanwhile, that also debuted this season, has been relegated after losing its final match 2-0 against Church Boys. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.